Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. Another glorious day weather-wise, but unfortunately we're still in lockdown here in the UK. Hopefully it won't be too long until we can take our pride and joys out for a proper drive, take it to the continent, take it to somewhere like the Nürburgring, which has actually just been announced that it's going to reopen at the end of this month, at the end of April. So that's a tiny glimmer of hope that we might be able to get out there in the next couple of months or so. Let's keep our fingers crossed. So today we're going to be looking at a small modification, upgrade, aesthetic, add-on if you like, for my M2 Competition. It's from my good friends at AutoID, Jack at AutoID. But I thought it would be a good time to have a quick look around my car and look at some of the mods and stuff that I've done to it in the time that I've owned it, because there are quite a few little things that I've done and you might have missed or could have missed all of the videos throughout the time of ownership. So in here is what I'm going to fit to the car towards the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. And before we do, AutoID, they've always supported me. This is actually a present from Jack because of the business that we generated from the last video I did with those guys about a year ago actually, when I fitted these lovely carbon side blades. So you have to wait to see what these are, but I'm sure regular viewers are going to have a good idea, especially if you follow me on Instagram, which you should follow me on Instagram, by the way. So we'll put this down and we'll fit these at the end. If you're looking at buying an AutoID product, use the coupon code or the discount code of JOE5, J-O-E, and then the number 5. Before we do look around the car, a bit like with Jack and AutoID, I try to be as transparent as I can with you guys. Now, obviously, my channel is pretty big now. I'm fast approaching 100,000 subscribers. So I do get approached by a lot of brands and people wanting to give me free stuff. It's a great opportunity. It's always sounds amazing. And I know a few years ago I'd have taken everything, but I've got to be careful with what I take and what I don't take. A bit like with my Control and Shift brand, Jonathan and I, discuss certain ideas and t-shirts and stuff that we could sell on our website, because I'm not going to sell any old rubbish and I'm not going to take things from brands just for the sake of having a free component or whatever it might be. I'm going to take the opportunity or advantage of things like that for stuff that I really like. So let's start at the front of the car and then slowly work our way backwards. Before we pop the bonnet and have a look under there, I just want to talk about car insurance, because it's a question that I get asked daily, who I use, etc., especially for my M2 Competition, because this isn't a fully stock car, as we're about to see. Now, I use Adrian Flux. I've used them for years. I use them for track days, as most of you long-termers will know, and I use them for my normal social, domestic and pleasure and filming on the M2 Competition. Why do I use them? Well, aside from the really competitive rates and stuff that they offer, I find them very easy to deal with. You speak to human beings, which is always a massive bonus for me, and you're not on hold for half an hour at a time, which I have been in the past with many insurers, which is really frustrating and aggravating. But also the fact that they seem to cater for small modifications really well, and they don't sting you too much for them. They just, it's almost like they have a massive list of modifications and they just tick a few boxes and away you go. So I've got a link to Adrian Flux Insurance just below in the description, right at the top of the description there. So I urge you to check that link out when your car insurance needs a renewal, because yeah, for me, they work out the best, and they're, as I say, a very easy company to deal with. Right, let's have a look under the bonnet. It's a double pull bonnet on all modern BMWs these days. And what I mean by that is there's no catch anymore. You actually pull it halfway and then pull it all the way and it pops the bonnet off. So now you just lift the bonnet and it opens up like that. What do we have under here? Well, aside from the S55 engine, which is standard in the M2 Competition, and this lovely carbon fiber strut brace, which is standard in the M2 Competition, and the M3 and the M4, as most of you probably know, I've got the gorgeous E-Venturi air intake in here. And in fact, I've got an E-Venturi engine cover as well, which is lovely. It just gets rid of the stock plastic one, which isn't the nicest thing to look at. But let's just talk about the air intake, because that's the main upgrade in here. What is it? Well, it's just a more effective and more efficient way of feeding this engine air. So it does add a couple of brake horsepower. I'm not going to suggest that it gives you what a sort of remap would give you, but it does give you an extra few brake horsepower. But what I've noticed when I jump back in a stock M2 with a normal airbox is that the pickup on this eVenturi car is so much better. It's so much sharper, so much crisper. It just picks up easier. And the reason for that is because it is getting air into the engine and into the mixture a lot easier. So I absolutely love it. I love the way it sounds, especially when you've got your windows down or windows up when you're in fourth or fifth and you sort of do a low gear pull. You get this lovely induction sound out of the engine. Okay, it's not an M3 E46 CSL, but it's not bad by today's modern standards. And the last thing, of course, is how good it looks and how pleasing it looks. I wish I could get a transparent bonnet so people could look through and see this, because it's not very often that you open an engine bay and you're greeted with something like this. Right, we're now at the side of the car, and seeing as the eVenturi intake is from the boys down at Evolve Automotive, I thought we might as well go on to something else that they've recently fitted and that you can't really see from here, but it is the MSS adjustable springs. Now, I've tried quite a few springs over the years. I've tried the IBAC lowering springs on my M135i and the M140. I tried the AC Schnitzer springs on this car for about the first year, and they were brilliant. They all lowered the car and they didn't upset the ride too much, although the ACS springs they felt substantially stiffer to me, especially when you jumped out of this and into a stock M2. And I found that over the years, they were great on Spanish roads or German roads, and they were great on track days, but on the typical British A or B road, which is generally pretty poor, the car just seemed to skip around a bit. And initially it was quite fun, but after a few months of winter driving, it did become a little bit sketchy at times. So I wanted something a bit more pliant. Now, obviously, money no object, I would go for a full coilover setup and really sort the suspension out. But MSS approached me. I heard good things from Imran about these, like behind closed doors, not just on the internet. And so I thought, you know what, let's have them fitted. And the good thing with the MSS springs is they are adjustable, so you can adjust the ride height of the car, but they also give you a much better ride. So the ones I've got on here, I think, are called the Sports and not the Track. So they do a much firmer one that are specifically designed for the track, but I'm guessing they would be very similar to the ACS springs and therefore kind of a pointless exercise me changing them. They have transformed this car and they've actually made it a much easier car to live with and drive around in. Whilst we're talking about the wheels and stuff, let's talk about other mods that are within them. So we've got the EBC RP1 brake pads, which are a track-specific brake pad, but I've found they work exceptionally well. They give you extra bite, whether they're cold or warm, or I haven't used the car for a week. They just seem to always be there. That was my main worry. I thought I'd get in the car and you'd need to give it a couple of hard brakes to get the pads working, but they're brilliant straight out of the box. The only negative with them, like a lot of high performance race pads, is they do squeal, especially at lower speeds, but I don't mind that because it kind of makes me feel like I'm driving a race car on the road. But anyway, so RP1 brake pads, stock BMW M rotors, or discs. I call them rotors because I'm half Australian, and I think that's where I got that from. What else? We've got the Motec spacers. So we've got 12mm spacers all round. That's it. That's all I really tend to go for, is 12mm. Obviously, they come with longer bolts as well, because that's the most important thing with spacers. People go on about spacers can be dangerous, etc. Yes, they can be, especially if you're running massive sort of 18mm spacers, and especially if you don't change the bolts. Obviously, if you keep the stock bolts and then you space the wheel out, you're effectively left with much less of the thread holding the wheel on. So really dangerous. So make sure the spacers you go for, with Mike's ones, obviously you get the bolt set with them, and then they're as safe as anything, especially with 12mm, where, you know, it's not particularly big. It just adds to the looks of the car, and it also adds to the front end feel of the car to me, for sure. As soon as you put them on, the front end just feels a lot more stable, even though we're talking about sort of that much overall width. What else have we got wheel wise? Well, we have got the rim guard wheel locks on these wheels. Very hard to spot. You probably haven't spotted them by now until I'm pointing them out, but that's only because they are super subtle, and that's the reason I've got them on there. Fantastic company in Sweden that make a very high quality product, and they make these products to fit and suit various wheels and brands. So I absolutely love them. It's not the sort of thing I would have normally gone for. I don't like steering wheel locks and stuff like that because I just think they look horrific. I'm really, really happy with my rim guards. What else along the side of the car? Well, the rest of it's pretty stock. I haven't gone for any special sills, or I haven't got a front splitter. Again, that's something that I've been offered quite a few times, especially by people like Jack at AutoID, who make fantastic splitters. But I'm just not interested in them because for me, I would probably end up knocking it off or damaging it in some way. And I quite like the car looking fairly OEM on the outside with a few little tweaks. Side blades, these are from Jack at AutoID. I absolutely love them. They were originally just black and fairly average and normal looking. Not bad, not offensive, but nothing special. These ones are lovely. They've got carbon plates behind them, and I just think they look absolutely fine. And they really, really look good and complement what I'm going to fit a bit later on. Anything else along the side of the car? Well, we have got a couple of control and shift stickers. On this side, we've got I Pity the Fuel, which in this car is pretty relevant because you're lucky to get 20 miles to the gallon out of it. And on the other side, we've got Breaking Bad because most people think BMW drivers can't drive. So I guess that kind of fits and suits this car, but I absolutely love them. I think they're really cool. Available at Control and Shift, as are a number of other stickers. Okay, now we find ourselves around the back of the car, and the only upgrade that I've got going on back here is the brilliant Remus exhaust by Mike and the guys down at Motec. Now this is probably one of my favorite and most important upgrades for the M2 Competition. For those of you that don't know, when this car was born, it was born at the time of the new sound and filter regulations, so the OPF filters and stuff, and BMW had to quickly bodge an exhaust together so that it met those standards, because when they developed this car originally, the original M2 for instance, we didn't have the OPF filters and all those things. That meant that the sound was basically non-existent unless you were absolutely caning it, and also the aesthetics of the rear back box on a standard M2 Competition, well, I nickname it the cow udder because I think it really does look like a cow udder. It's quite an unfortunate look, but it's something that BMW just had to put together to get the cars out to customers and to be able to make it sell, because obviously in a normal situation they'd have years of research and development and design and get it exactly right, like they did on the original M2, but with the M2 Competition it was a different story. So what's this system that I've got? Well, it's a Remus axle back system, but it's the race system. And I believe the race system is only available in a few countries around the world. It's not available in places like Germany where they have much stricter sound laws. What does the race system mean? Well, it's a valve system. So just like the stock exhaust, it's either reasonably quiet when it's in, say, Comfort or Eco Pro and you're just cruising around or on a long motorway jaunt. But when you put it in sports and the valves open, it is not loud, but it opens up and you can hear that lovely straight six from the S55 lump. So it does really transform this car, and it brings it back in line with cars like, say, older 2016, 2017 M3s and M4s that didn't have those horrible filters and restrictions on them. I didn't stop there with the exhaust. I actually, about 6 months later, went for the Remus Mid-Res Delete. I think that's what it's called. Effectively, it removes some of the, or one of the main resonators in the exhaust. Again, not the OPF filters and not the cats, just the actual resonator box, which is another box that's put in the exhaust system of the M2 Competition just to keep the car as quiet as possible. So removing that and replacing it with basically 2 straight pipes just opens the sound of the car up, and that made a massive difference. And in fact, I think that mid-res delete made more of a sound improvement, or let's say turning the volume up more so than replacing the rear back box. So that was a real improvement. Is it a bit loud for me now? Borderline. I wouldn't want it any louder, and people that say they get rid of the cats or they do straight, I mean, that's just not me. This is loud enough for me now and what I use it in my old 40-year-old ears. Right, that's all of the improvements and modifications I've done on the outside of the car, aside from what we're going to look at soon. Let's have a quick look inside. I've done a couple of little changes in the inside of the cabin, then I promise we'll fit whatever's in that box. Okay, we're now inside the M2 Competition, and there's a couple of little minor changes that I've done in here, but nothing too dramatic. I have thought about replacing the seats, the standard seats, which are decent, but I wanted something a bit more supportive for track days, but then I thought it would be a bit of a trade-off and it will kind of ruin some of the usability or daily usability of this car. So everything's pretty standard in here. Obviously, this particular car is a manual. We'll talk about that a bit more later when I take it out for a quick drive for my essential shops. But what is new in here? Well, the first and most obvious thing that you're probably seeing is the actual steering wheel. Now, this is a stock wheel. This is the original wheel that was in the car, but I've taken it down to Jack at Royal Steering Wheels, who's based just near Aylesbury. I can't praise this guy enough. He's done a few wheels for me over the years, and I absolutely love them. This is a full Alcantara wheel now, so he's taken my original wheel, taken the leather off, and wrapped a really nice high quality Alcantara around it. But not only that, with this particular one, he's actually removed some of the padding as well. So it's about 15% thinner rim than the stock BMW one, which to me, as most of you know, well, there's 2 things I go on about. The fact that I'm 6'4", did you know I'm 6'4"? And also the fact that I don't like really thick rims on steering wheels. Why people do it, I don't know. There's nothing sporty about it, there's nothing cool about it, there's just nothing, I just don't understand it. It's brands getting excited about thinking that putting thick rims on wheels makes them sporty, but it doesn't. Race car wheels don't have thick rims. Porsche wheels don't have thick rims. Thin rims is where it's at. So bit of a thinner rim and the lovely Alcantara. You do have to pay extra to get the thin rim put in though, because there's a lot more work involved, and Jack will probably hate me for recommending that. But anyway, so that's one thing which makes a big difference for me. I've also got this lovely Hockenheim silver leather center strap in the middle of the wheel, which I think is just lovely. You've got the M stitching as well, so I've got blue and red stitching around the steering, and it's basically a fraction of the price of what BMW charge you for the entire M Performance steering wheel. What else have I got in here? Well, I've got my P3 gauge over here, and in fact I've had that P3 gauge for about 3 years now. I originally got it in my M140. It's another product that I got from Mike and Motec, but it's a really handy little gauge because, like a lot of modern BMWs, especially the M Lights of the F20 generation and this M2, you don't really get enough gauges and dials in here telling you temperatures and stuff, and that's important in a car with this kind of performance. So that gives me a lot of temperatures, water, oil, air. It also gives me things like boost pressure and a number of other things, like it can measure my 0 to 60 times and I think the 100 to 200 times. So there's a few things on there. Do I use it regularly? No, but when I am on trips like the Petrolhead tours in 35 degrees heat with me and Patrick and the car's fully loaded and I'm booting it all day, it is a handy gauge to have, and just to keep an eye on temperatures and stuff. Anything else in here? Well, I can't go without talking about my lovely control and shift mount. So that's a vent mount, control and shift mount, a very familiar piece of kit. I've used them for years. Obviously Mega mounts and now control and shift make one. That's the only mount that we do at Control and Shift. And if there's any other mount that you need, because I know with a lot of modern cars, especially some of the latest Audis, this style of mount just won't work. So head over to Mega Mounts and check out what they've got, because they have 20 odd different mounts that fit every single car. So, and they've always supported me, and you know, I think they make a fantastic product. But yeah, magnet on the back of the phone or on your actual phone protector, and that just goes on there. And as you've probably seen over the years, that phone is not going anywhere regardless of how hard you drive. So it's a brilliant piece of kit, and yeah, it's a real saviour if you're going to run Waze or whatever on there. It's just safe as well. It just means that you take your phone out of your pocket, you put it somewhere safe, and you leave it there for the entirety of the journey. Right, let's get about fitting whatever's in that box and then take this car out for a quick drive. You're probably guessing already what it's going to be. Well, it's a lovely pair of AutoID wing mirror caps, but not just any old wing mirror caps, lovely carbon fibre ones. And for those of you who have watched my channel for a while, you saw when I popped down to see Jack at AutoID about a year ago, we did kind of put these over the mirrors a bit like that and think, yeah, they look pretty cool. But I didn't end up getting them then. But as I said at the start of the video, Jack very kindly sent me these to produce a bit of content, and also hopefully produce a bit of sales for him, because he's still open for mail order stuff. So yeah, if you do buy something, make sure you use the discount code JOE5 to get 5% off. Now, I'm not going to lie, fitting these, I've done them in the past with my original M2, in fact, and the original ones that Jack gave me back then, so 4 years ago, almost to the day. And they're not the easiest things to fit. You've got to be very patient, and I'm not the most patient person. But let's see if we can make it look relatively easy on camera. So I'm going to put this back down there in the box and out of the way for now. First step is putting a microfiber cloth or any kind of towel over your door, window down, over your door, just to stop any debris, or if and when the glass comes out, it can sometimes just hang and touch the paintwork. So you want to make sure that's safe. Now, the next thing is finding something that's good to actually pop the glass out, because the glass, it's very strong in one way, but it's also very weak in other. And the outside edges of the glass is quite weak. There's like a wide angle bit on the outside of any BMW glass that's very weak, so stay well away from the outside of the glass. What you want to try and do is get in the middle, underneath, in the middle of the glass. That's where the meat of it is, and that's where the best place to pop the glass off, because it's basically just on some like pop rivets almost, and you just need to get that off in a nice clean movement. Now, Jack suggests using like a squeegee. I find they're a little bit soft sometimes, but it is hard trying to find something that fits perfectly. This, believe it or not, is an old Park Tool bottom bracket tool for one of my old mountain bikes, and it gives me a perfect surface. It's nice and flat. It spreads the load quite evenly, and it's narrow enough that I can still put something like a microfiber towel over the top of it to just stop me from marking up the black surround of the mirror itself. So what I want to do is pop that underneath the mirror, and now you just got to do a little bit of praying and hope that when you do this, and it sounds horrible because it's glass, but actually there you go. So that's just popped off. Actually came off very nicely. I was jamming this in too far to start with, so I was actually trying to take a motor unit out as opposed to the actual mirror, or the glass piece. So the glass piece is out now, and as I say, because I've got the towel there, I can just let that hang gently and it's fine. It's got a couple of wires on the back, because this bit of glass, believe it or not, is it changes colour depending on the light outside and depending on motorway driving at night. For instance, when you've got high beams or bright lights behind, it stops the wing mirrors dazzling you. So that piece of glass off memory is about 200 quid, so you really don't want to break that. The next bit, unfortunately, is no easier. There's less risk involved because you're hopefully not going to break something like the piece of glass, but bit of fiddling around, pricing and stuff. So I'll probably fast forward this because it takes about 5 minutes. But yeah, it's just a case of there's lots of locating pins around the back of the glass. In fact, I can show you on this one. There's various locating pins, which basically mean that the cap stays exactly square and looks good. But then there's two actual fixing points that rely on you sort of levering them out to release them. So once you've levered both of those out, then it should effectively just slide out. Okay, that actually ended up taking me about 10 minutes just because I was being very careful with it. It is a really fidgety job, I'm not gonna lie. Something else that you've got to be careful of is when you're trying to prise it out using long nose pliers or screwdriver or both from the inside, when it does go, it tends to fly off. Thankfully this landed in the box, but otherwise, yeah, I'd have scratched my wing mirror. So not the easiest of jobs, if I'm being totally honest. Really isn't, but anyway, let's hope it's all going to be worth it. So let's put it back in the box that it landed in and get out the nice carbon one. Now in terms of putting it on, you kind of want to do it in the reverse way that you took it off. So you need to locate it and then move it forward. So there's some locator pins at the bottom, so just got to line them up. Make sure that's all in. And then when that's all lined up at the bottom, then you need to make sure the top tabs are underneath the black bit of wing mirror, like that. Just make sure everything's lined up. If everything's lined up, then it should all fix into place. So there's one click. So that's the outside clip clicking in. Now the inside one. There you go. So that's now in as well. So the whole thing is lined up. Spacing wise, it all looks perfect. Just going to give it a quick wipe over. Make sure I haven't marked it up anywhere. Right, whew. Well that was hot work because it is about 23 degrees today and I've been standing in the sun for the last couple of hours trying to film this. The next and last bit I need to do, which should be the easiest bit, is putting the actual glass back in. So again, you're just lining up this circular bit with that circular bit in there and just making sure that wire is off to the side, and then it should, there we go, all in, no problemo. So that is all done and dusted. Now I just need to reset both of my mirrors so that they're back to where I have them when I'm driving, and we'll take it out for a quick drive to the local shops for some essential wing mirror shopping, food shopping. Okay, here we are out on the road, on the empty roads. Gonna head to my local supermarket, pick up a few essentials. I think we all appreciate any kind of drive we get these days. We can't go on spirited long drives, we can't go to other countries or even to places like Wales at the moment, but we can go to our local supermarket. Because I live a bit out of London, there's some decent roads on the way. I'm very fortunate to have that gorgeous Tango Red B9.5 RS4 at home as well, because Audi couldn't take that back because their press fleets closed during COVID-19. So I've got that, and I've got this, and obviously I've got my 7 Series as well. So 3 very nice cars to drive around in, but how much driving can we do? Well, very limited. You know, I've been tempted to go out for a proper drive, but it would just be irresponsible at the moment. So yeah, just been enjoying my drives to the shops and taking advantage of the lack of traffic around. Now, I still get asked to this day, believe it or not, which M2 should I buy, Joe? A manual or a DCT? Now, obviously, I went for a manual. I love the manual. I talk about this all the time on my channel, and I'm very fortunate enough to get a lot of lovely press cars like that RS4 that I have at home. Now, the majority of modern sports cars, supercars, whatever, they're all automatic these days. None of them are manual. So I wanted my own personal car to be manual because I still love driving a manual. And in fact, although this car has got an auto blip feature when you change down the gears, so I'm not doing anything at the moment, and it's just revving or rev matching as I go back down the gearbox. If you turn everything off in this car, then you can do your own heel and towing, and it's a really nice setup to do that, and it's really enjoyable. And doing that at, you know, very average speeds gives me a lot of enjoyment and a lot of driver involvement with this car. So yeah, I just love it. I love the manual gearbox. There's nothing better than a manual box to me. I love going through the gears. I think Henry Catchpole's video on that manual 911, I think it was a 991.2 GT3 manual, and he just sums it up so well. Every gear change, first to second, is completely different to second to third, which is completely different from third to fourth, and the same going back down. And it's like you do have your favourite gears. Like I like going from, so I'm in fifth now, I like going from fourth into third, and a little bit of a blip. It's just lovely. Go around here. What beautiful weather as well. This road is shocking. Oh, we've got a horse and a cart on the road. Third to fourth is great as well. Let it rev out a little bit. It's just that you don't get in any automatic. Nothing. You just don't. You really don't. And now, as we're coming back down again, we'll give it a little blip into third, into second. We'll go around this roundabout, and then we'll head to the shops. I could obviously just keep driving because it's just lovely, but I'm not gonna. Out here, second to third's good. I like that. Into the middle of the box, but third to fourth's my favourite. Oh yes. And short shift up into sixth because we're at the speed limit, and it's just lovely. It's an absolute pleasure. Something else I get asked a lot about recently, especially, which I do find slightly odd, is people still asking me, you know, what the replacement is for this particular car. To be honest, as many of you know, I've got pretty much no money in the bank account, especially for, you know, things like nice cars. So I'm not getting rid of this car anytime soon. There is nothing that will replace it for me at the moment. Sure, there's the lovely, you know, recently announced Porsche Cayman GTS with the 4-litre in it, and even the Boxster GTS. What a car. I think they're going to be, what, mid-60s or something, 70 with a few toys. So still a lot more expensive than this, and in fact almost M2 CS money. But I don't have the cash at the moment. I'm struggling to sort of pay for what I've got. Work's dead, so I'm not in any position to think about changing cars or even look at changing cars. But there's nothing I want to jump into. This car is perfect for me and my needs. We can fit 4 passengers in here with absolutely no problem whatsoever. Big boot. I can chuck my mountain bike in there with the seats down, which I will show you at a later date or very soon in another video. But yeah, there's nothing in the pipeline that I'm looking at and getting excited about, and certainly nothing that I can afford to justify getting rid of this and jumping into. So yeah, for those of you that keep asking me about what's next, I really don't know, and it's definitely not in the next 6 months or even 9 or 12 months. So there is nothing else in the pipeline. I love this car, and as far as I'm concerned, for the money and for the needs that this car requires, there is nothing else on the market that would you know, that would replace it, I guess. So there you go. Well, as you can see, the wing mirrors are still in place. So although they were quite hard to fit, at least I've fitted them properly, and I think they just look fantastic. They really do. So yeah, thanks a lot to Jack at AutoID, really appreciate it. Make sure you do check out everything they do. They don't just do carbon bits for BMWs, they do a number of bits for a lot of German manufacturers. So head over to their website and check that out, and obviously check out everyone else, you know, Evolve Automotive, Motec Performance. The majority of these guys are all open for at least mail order business at the moment, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll have some restrictions lifting, and we can, you know, we can go about our normal duties and potentially go and get our cars tinkered with from our local favourite garages. But anyway, I'm just arriving to my supermarket. I'm going to pull into the car park. Oh, look at that lovely queue, but at least it's in the sun, so I can't complain. Yeah, thanks a lot for watching as always, guys. Please remember to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and yeah, and I'll hopefully see you at another video very, very soon. Cheers.